Have you ever noticed how some people slowly disappear without actually dying? I don't mean physically, I mean mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like somewhere along the way, the version of them that once wanted something bigger just quietly faded out. And the terrifying part is, almost nobody notices when it happens because it doesn't happen through tragedy. It happens through comfort, through routine, through predictability, through years of saying, I'll do it later. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest lies modern life ever sold people, that comfort equals happiness. Because if that were true, then why do so many people with comfortable lives still feel trapped? Why do people spend all week waiting for Friday, then spend Sunday night depressed that Monday is coming back again? Why do people buy bigger TVs, nicer apartments, more expensive cars, yet still feel this weird emptiness they can't explain? That question matters. Because I genuinely believe the richest prison in the world is a comfortable life, and most people living inside it have absolutely no idea the door was never locked. I remember sitting in traffic a few years ago watching this guy in a brand new black SUV. Beautiful car, massive wheels, tinted windows, probably cost over 100 grand easily, and from the outside he looked successful. But then I noticed something. He looked exhausted, not physically tired, spiritually tired. Like the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. And I started wondering something. What if that car didn't represent freedom? What if it represented dependency? What if the monthly payment was so massive that he couldn't afford to quit the job he hated anymore? What if every luxury in his life quietly became another chain, keeping him trapped? That realization hit me hard because modern life became incredibly good at disguising prisons as success. And honestly, that's genius psychologically because people fight cages, but they protect comfort. That's why the trap works so well. Nobody wakes up at 18 dreaming about becoming emotionally numb. Nobody dreams about spending 40 years counting down to weekends. Nobody dreams about staring at a clock in an office wondering if this is all life is supposed to be. But slowly, people adapt. Humans adapt unbelievably fast. Actually, maybe too fast. You can adapt to stress, you can adapt to unhappiness, you can adapt to emotional exhaustion. And eventually, you stop questioning things you should have escaped years ago. That's dangerous. Because once discomfort disappears completely, growth usually disappears too. And modern society is unbelievably efficient at removing discomfort instantly. You feel bored? Open your phone. You feel anxious? Watch something. You feel lonely? Scroll social media, you feel stressed, order food. Everything is instant now. Entertainment is instant. Distraction is instant. Comfort is instant. And because of that, people almost never sit alone with their thoughts anymore, which is probably why so many people never realize they're living lives they don't even want. They're distracted just enough to tolerate it. That's the trap. And honestly, I noticed this years ago when I started listening carefully to how people talk about work. Most people don't describe work like something meaningful. They describe it like survival, like prison sentences with direct deposit. Only 2 more days until Friday. I can't wait for vacation. Just trying to survive this week. And here's the terrifying question nobody asks. If somebody spends most of their life waiting to temporarily escape their own life, is that really freedom? Because personally, I don't think freedom is waking up every morning to an alarm clock you hate just to maintain bills that force you to repeat the cycle forever. That's not freedom. That's dependency, wearing professional clothes. And look, this is not me attacking hardworking people, not at all. Most people are genuinely trying their best. Life is expensive, pressure is real, bills are real. I completely understand that. But understanding something and accepting it forever are two very different things. That's the point. And honestly, I think one of the biggest reasons people stay trapped is because society rewards comfortable obedience. Not freedom, not independence, predictability. Think about school for a second. For years, people are trained to follow instructions. Raise your hand before speaking. Show up on time. Memorize information. Repeat systems correctly. Don't question authority too much. And then, after over a decade of conditioning people to avoid mistakes, society acts surprised when adults become terrified of uncertainty. Of course they are. Most people were trained to survive systems, not build lives. That realization changes everything. Because once you recognize the pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. You start noticing how modern life constantly pushes people toward emotional passivity. Safe job, safe opinions, safe goals, safe routines, everything's safe. Until eventually, a person becomes so emotionally attached to stability that even opportunity starts feeling dangerous. That's wild when you think about it. Freedom starts looking risky to people addicted to comfort. And honestly, I think that's one of the saddest psychological traps on earth, because deep down, humans are naturally ambitious creatures. We want movement, growth, expansion, purpose. But comfort slowly convinces people to shrink themselves voluntarily. I remember talking to a guy once who said something that genuinely stayed in my head for years. He told me, "Man, I've been planning to start my business for 11 years." 11 years. And the crazy part? He wasn't lazy, he was intelligent, hardworking, capable. But every year he found another reason to wait: the economy, the timing, responsibilities, risk. And honestly, I understood him completely, because fear sounds rational when it's protecting comfort. That's what makes this trap so dangerous psychologically. The cage sounds logical. Be realistic. Play it safe. Now isn't the right time. People say these things for so long that eventually fear starts sounding like wisdom. But here's the brutal reality: most people are not trapped by poverty. They're trapped by predictability. That's the real prison. Predictable suffering, predictable stress, predictable routines, predictable unhappiness, and eventually people become so emotionally exhausted that they stop trying to change anything at all. That's when ambition dies quietly, not through failure, through repetition, through distraction, through comfort. And honestly, one of the scariest moments in life is realizing how easy it is to accidentally waste years. One lazy evening doesn't ruin a future. Neither does one bad decision. But years of unconscious repetition, that changes everything. I think about this all the time when I see people completely emotionally disconnected from their own lives. Same alarm, same traffic, same office, same conversations, same stress. Year after year after year, not living, repeating. And maybe the saddest part is how normal society made this feel. People celebrate surviving instead of transforming. They celebrate being busy instead of being free. They celebrate appearances instead of fulfillment. And look, I understand why. Transformation is uncomfortable. Growth is emotionally painful sometimes. Reinvention feels terrifying. But staying the same forever has a cost too, a massive one. People just don't calculate it because the pain arrives slowly. You know what's fascinating though? Some of the happiest people I've ever met were not the most comfortable people. They were the people growing, the people building something meaningful, the people evolving constantly. Because growth creates aliveness. That's what people actually want deep down, not endless comfort, expansion, movement, purpose. And honestly, I think a huge amount of modern depression comes from people suppressing versions of themselves they secretly want to become. That creates internal conflict. A person knows they want more from life, but they also fear losing the comfort they already have. So they stay trapped between safety and potential. That's exhausting psychologically. And eventually, people start coping instead of transforming. That's why distraction became one of the biggest industries on earth. Because distracted people rarely change their lives. They tolerate them. That's a huge difference. And the scary part is you can spend years tolerating a life before realizing you never consciously chose it. You just inherited it slowly, from fear, from expectations, from convenience, from conditioning. And then one day reality hits you out of nowhere. You wake up 35, 45, maybe even 60, and suddenly you start wondering where the ambitious version of yourself disappeared to. That realization destroys people emotionally. Because deep down, humans don't just regret failure. They regret abandoned potential. The business never started. The dream never pursued. The skill never mastered. The version of themselves they never gave a real chance to exist. That pain lasts forever. And honestly, this is why I believe comfort can become addictive. Not because comfort feels good, but because comfort removes urgency. And urgency creates movement. Think about every major transformation in your life. Every single one probably started with discomfort, failure, pain, embarrassment, pressure, frustration. Discomfort creates momentum. Comfort creates stillness. And stillness becomes dangerous when the world keeps moving. That's why some people become incredibly fragile emotionally over time, because they built lives completely optimized around avoiding discomfort. Any uncertainty creates panic. Any disruption feels overwhelming. Any risk feels terrifying. That's what happens when somebody never trains resilience. And honestly, resilience might become one of the most valuable traits of the future. Because the world changes constantly now. Technology changes, industries change, opportunities change, and people addicted to comfort struggle adapting to reality. But adaptable people, they survive almost anything because their identity isn't attached to stability, it's attached to growth. That's powerful. And maybe one of the biggest mindset shifts a person can develop is learning to stop asking, how do I avoid discomfort? And instead asking, which discomfort is worth enduring? Because every path contains pain anyway. Staying stuck hurts, growing hurts, regret hurts, discipline hurts. Everything costs something. So the real question becomes, what pain creates a better future? That question changes lives because suddenly discomfort stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like investment. And honestly, that's probably one of the biggest differences between trapped people and free people. Free people tolerate short term discomfort for long term freedom. Trapped people sacrifice long term freedom for short term comfort. That's the trade. And modern society makes short term comfort unbelievably seductive. Constant stimulation, constant entertainment, constant distraction, everything engineered to keep people consuming instead of creating. That's why attention became one of the most valuable resources on Earth, because attention controls direction, and direction controls life. A distracted person rarely transforms, they drift. And drifting is dangerous because it feels harmless day to day. One wasted evening doesn't feel serious. Neither does one lazy weekend, but years of unconscious repetition, that changes an entire future. Eventually, people become background characters inside their own lives. That feeling is horrible. And honestly, I think deep down, most people know when they're settling. You can feel it internally, that little voice saying, this can't be all life is. That voice matters a lot because some people spend their entire lives trying to silence it with comfort. More purchases, more distractions, more entertainment, more coping. But the voice never fully disappears because humans naturally want meaning, growth, expansion. We're wired for it. And honestly, one of the most powerful moments in life is when somebody realizes they don't actually want comfort as much as they thought they did. They want freedom. There's a difference. Comfort says, protect what you already have. Freedom says, become who you're capable of becoming. Huge difference. One mindset contracts life, the other expands it. And this doesn't mean becoming reckless or irresponsible. That's not the message. It means recognizing when safety quietly became self destruction. Because sometimes the biggest risk in life is permanently avoiding risk. That's real. And honestly, one of the saddest futures imaginable is becoming old while secretly wondering who you could have become if fear didn't control so many decisions. Because deep down, humans don't just regret mistakes, they regret never fully trying. That pain follows people forever. And maybe that's why so many people become bitter later in life. Not because life defeated them, because comfort slowly convinced them to stop fighting for something bigger. That realization is brutal. But honestly, it's also motivating because it means the cage was never truly locked. It just felt safer staying inside it. And the moment somebody truly understands that, their entire life can change. Because now they stop worshiping comfort blindly. Now they start questioning routines. Now they start paying attention to fear. Now they start respecting growth again. And slowly, they become dangerous in the best possible way. Dangerous to limitation, dangerous to stagnation, dangerous to the version of themselves that settled for less. And maybe that's the real goal in life, not becoming perfectly comfortable, but becoming fully alive. Because at the end of the day, The richest prison in the world is still a prison, even if it feels comfortable inside.